Okay, so Mamer Biur, this is the 17th Mamer in the Parsha Shelach and Likutei Torah. And this is the final Mamer concluding this whole topic of tzitzis.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. I thought you were saying fine.
The Alter Rebbe is going to further continue to explain the idea that we talked before. We talked about the tzitzis that the talus is the makif. We talked about that's the level of the mitzvahs. The Torah is panimius. That's the level of chokhmah. So it turns out that rotzen is higher than the level of chokhmah. So it's the keser is higher than chokhmah, and we talked about that's why the la'osid lavoi it'll be dafke neshamas begufim, because only in the guf you can be mamshich from the level notes. Okay, so now he's going to have a whole discussion about is take rotzen on a higher level or a lower level than the chokhmah, as we'll see inside. Biur advarim, explaining this matters aposik ani chulu the parsha tzitzis, and also ve'inyan b'shosh yisroim oimrim yehesh me'rabba chulu. We said before, when the Yidden say yehesh me'rabba, the Eibishter, the Shmei Rabba is the Shmei HaGodl, and that's even higher than the Shem Havaya, that it comes down. Chulu. So lahavin inyan harotzen. So what he's trying to do is to understand the idea of rotzen. Shenisbaer shuhu b'chinas chitzonius neged haseichel. Rotzen is external relative to seichel, because seichel is the pneumius that comes through. He said that excitus, it comes through in a pneumius. That's why we have by seichel we have the idea in Gan Eden. You have the neshamas are enjoying this Zivashchina because they comprehend that it comes down in the pneumius. Mashenkin the rotzen doesn't come down. This is higher than chokhmah. That is makif. That is the chitzonius. It's not the pneumius. But what does it mean that it is chitzonius? That would mean external. So how could we say that next to the seichel, rotzen is chitzonius, when we know that rotzen usually chitzonius means a lower level because it's external. Pneumius is the essence, is the higher level usually, and chitzonius means that it's only superficial, it's only on the outside, it's not the real thing. So that would mean to say that rotzen is chitzonius of the keser of chokhmah, meaning that it's in a lower level. The truth is that while rotzen is chitzonius, but it's chitzonius from keser. So, and therefore it's higher than chokhmah. Yes, rotzen is higher than seichel. How can we call this chitzonius? But it's chitzonius in the high within keser. It is chitzonius, which means in keser itself there is a level of moichas timah, which is called the hidden level of moichas. And relative to the moichas timah, the hidden level of moichin, rotzen is called chitzonius. But that chitzonius from keser is higher than the pneumius of atzilus, which is chokhmah. Chokhmah is not a pneumius, but it is the chitzonius from the keser. So he says, why is rotzen higher than seichel? Ki rotzen ubchinas keser. Rotzen is the level of keser. V'haseichel ubchinas chokhmah. So keser is higher than chokhmah. That's why we ask. We say yehi rotzin. We're asking that there should be a rotzin. So in other words, we're asking to be a higher level. But the idea is like this. There's two levels in the seichel. Aleph, number one, who b'chinas chokhmah, the level of chokhmah, which is Abba the Atzilus, the father of Atzilus, that is the level of chokhmah. Sheyoinek mimazlo da'arich. He nurtures, gets the oil from the mazel of arich, from the arich ampin, from the mazel of arich. V'hu, and that chokhmah is lamata me'aratzah. That's below ratzah. Share yinikosei mibchinas saides bilvad, because the nurturing that chokhmah does, it nurtures its yonik only from the level of cider. Hanim shochis mibchinas galgalta. The hairs go on the galgalta, go on the skull, and from the hair, the skull, that's keser, that's rotzen, and the hair is nimshach from the galgalta, which is rotzen. So there's no comparison to the sidus, the hairs that are coming out of the skull relative to the skull itself. So, of course, chokhmah is a lower level than the rotzen. The galgalta is the rotzen. This is only a hair from the galgalta. So chokhmah of Atzilus is lower than keser. It's lower than the galgalta. But we have our base. There's a second level in seichel. Ubchinas moiches timo. That's called the hidden level of moicha. Shehu b'chinas seichel hanelam mikol rayan. That is the seichel which is hidden from anybody's grasp. Who lamayla min harotzin. That is higher than the rotzin. Kiboi hu b'chinas tainuk. Because in that level of seichel, there's level of tainuk. Shu b'chinas eisof mamish, level of eisof mamish. Now we call that also the level. You see the level of atik. That's the level of atik, which is higher than arich. Arich is the level of kesed, the level of rotzin. This is the pnimis, the merches timo. I think we'll see that inside. V'harotzin hu b'chinas chitzonis shemerches timo. This parenthesis now is going to go away in a whole big discussion here about exactly from the different kabbalahs, from different svarim. Rotzin is the chitzonis of the merches timo. While the rotzin is higher than the moichach of chokhmah abba, but it's chitzonius, basically the kesed, the gulgola is chitzonius, the externality of the moichas timo. Inside of the gulgolas, there is the moicham, that's the moichas timo. The skull hovers, is an externality. Like the skull, relative to the brain that's inside the skull, is an externality. The level of moichas timo, that's the inner of the rotzin. That's the hidden reason of the rotzin. Like he said before, when the Gemara says, this is, it doesn't mean that there is no reason. There is no revealed reason. There's no reason that comes out. But in the level of moichas timo, in the level of tainuk, over there is a reason. That's why that's the pnimius of the rotzin. Shu atam hakomus, that's the hidden reason shel rotzin. The kol zeh mevur beitz chaim. All this is explained in the Eitz Chaim, in Shar Chobeis, Perik Hey. So over there it says, Ki hamoyach hasosum shebikeser. Talks about, that's the discussion, the moyach shebikeser. Says, Bekeser yesh boy bechinas pnimis. There's an inner in Keser. Shehein moichim sheboy ba'atzmei. Those that they're his own moichin. The moichin of Keser, the moichin of the Golgelus. Einsha. Harei mevuer mizeh. So what do we have explained? The bechinas moichas timo, the level of moichas timo, zeu pnim is the galgalto. That is the inner of the galgalto. Shehi, the galgalto is chitzonis shaloi, is the externality of the moichas timo. Commission is more gamki b'mokem achar bebiur al posik al kol kvei chuppah. Why do we call that moichas timo, moichas timo? V'nikras timo. Why is it called timo? Because it doesn't come into revelation at all. It's not revealed. Anyways, so he says, so that remains always remains hidden, as opposed to Chochmah Da'atzilus. The Spatchol Lamed Beis Shvilim that develops into 32 Lamed Beis Lesivis Chochmah, the 32 paths of Chochmah. Ukmeshikosu bezoyar cheli gimel dav kuf chavches soiv amud beis. Shezeu inyan v'nohor yetze me'eden. This development that comes from Chochmah is Nohor, comes from Eden. You have Eden is Chochmah, and then the Nohor is the level that comes, the Lamed Beis, and from that gets to Gan Eden. V'hamshochas ha-Chochmah da-Atzilus me-Chochmah Stimo. How does Chochmah da-Atzilus come from Chochmah Stimo? Well, they Cyrus. That comes through the level of Cyrus, a very mitzumtzum. And of this it says, "V'zorach miseir lomoy." He shined from Seir to the Yidden. Talks about when Hashem came to the Yidden in Torah. First he came to Edom, he came to Seir, but Seir means here, and this is a lashon of shining. Yochid, it's an individual. Basically, from Moiches Timor to Chochmah comes from one here, Seir, one here. Well, then of them so I'm Ashikos Mizebir Amasril, Aposik Vei Yetzlish Amen, Aposik Teretzib. Shabchina Saida Echaz Bilvad, there's only one here, Nimshach Liyas Musaf. So one here of Moiches Timor, what's Nimshach to become understandable? The Liyah is Tainig and Neshamas Began Eden Chul, to be the Tainig of the Neshamas and Gan Eden. So that's number one. It's only one here. And Vegam Hamshochas HaSaydis V'Nikosem Mechochmas Timor. How do the Saydis come? That Saydis, and they get the Chochmas Timor. Again, the Chochmas Timor, we said that which is in the head, which the Golgolus serves around. Who are you there? Galgalta. It goes through the skull. So that covers the Moiches Timor. The Hainu, that is Shaharotzin, Master Umaylim is Bechinas Moiches Timor, the Rotzin, the Gugula that blocks the level of Moiches Timor, Shalamaylim HaRotzin, which is higher than the Rotzin. So the Rotzin blocks on it. There should be only one here that goes through the Gulgos. So when we count the 10 spheres, how do you have 10? So it says like this: the lepa'omim hakesed nimna b'minyan ha'eser sfiras. Sometimes you start with keser chochma bina, you get 10 sfiras, and then we don't count das; then we only count chochma bina. Upa'omim hadas nimna, and sometimes we count das, and then boz ena keser nimna. Then we don't count keser. Why is that? B'hainu. When you count the externality of the Esses, so then all the Esses, so Azai, Kama Keser Nimna B'minyan HaSfiras. Then Keser is also part of the Sfiras. Why? Ki Chitzoinius HaKeser Daino Rotze Nimna B'klal Esser Sfiras. Because the externality of Keser is counted in the Esses. Because what's the externality? That's the Gulgalta, that's the skull. Then that's part of the 10 Sfiras. Avo be'b'chinas Pnimius, but when we count the 10 Sfiras be'Pnimius, so what's the Pnimius of the Gulgalta? Is the Meichas Timo. Over there, the keser is not counted. Because why? Because the pnimius against the meichas is of mamish. It's not part of the sfiras. It's only a source. Then the Chochma of Atzilus is the first of the Esses Sfiras, which is Reishis Chochma, the first level of Chochma. Okay, let's try to do this. The code that goes over to base next thing, but this is a long parenthesis over here. Let's see how we can do it. I think it goes all the way up to base. Yeah, the whole thing goes up to base.
Yes,
I'll go to base.
I don't know if it breaks in the middle,
Yeah.
but I don't see.
Okay. Well, if he's so based on this, he says, "Ma'ashe kosuv b'mokem achar b'duchte tuvi." It's written elsewhere, other places, many places. B'inyan Torah mitzvahs, when it discusses Torah mitzvahs, so he explains when he tries to compare Torah mitzvahs. So in many places it says like this. Why? We find that sometimes Torah is higher than mitzvahs, sometimes mitzvahs is higher than Torah. Baho, the lefa'omim, mashma Torah ilamayla mitzvahs. Sometimes it appears that Torah is higher than mitzvahs. Upamim mashma, and sometimes it appears shah mitzvahs hem lamayla Torah, that the mitzvah is higher than Torah. So it explains in many places she'inyan sheshneim emes. Says they're both true. So that's what's explained there, they're both true. Ki ha-Torah hi b'bchinas moicha. Torah comes from the level of moicha. Va-mitzvahs b'bchinas galgalta. And the mitzvahs come from galgalta. So when you measure Pnimius next to Chitzonius, Torah has a Maila because Torah is Pnimius. Over mitzvahs is Chitzonius. But when you measure which is on a higher level, so the Galgalta is higher than the level of the Moichin of the Chochmah Atzilus. Yesh Maila b'moyach she'ena b'Galgalto. There is a Maila in Moyach, which is not Megalgalta, that the Moyach is Pnimis. But the Yesh Maila Begalgalta, Shu Chitzonius Elyon Yesed. It's taka externality, but it's from a higher level. So, according to this, Tzorich Lemer Lefizer. So the way we explained it before, the Hainu Lefi. If we said that the Torah comes from Meichas Timo is higher than the Golgelus also. But because Torah comes from Chochmah Atzilus, Ulagabi Chochmah Atzilus, Shaykh Lemerkei. So relative Chochmah Atzilus, we can say, She'im Hayoisa B'Bchinas Pnimis V'Galgalta, that although that although Chochmah is Pnimis and the Galgalta Chitzonis, Ach Lefishi Chitzonis HaKeser, because the Chitzonis L'chein B'Bechina Zu, He Gavay Yeser Ma Chochmah Atzilus. So in that level, because it's Chitzonis HaKeser, because it's Chitzonis, but it's Chitzonis of Keser, it's from a higher Madrega, so it's higher than Atzilus, which is lower than Keser, which is Atzilus. Ba'afa Pikein, and still B'Bchina Achas, Yesh Maile B'Chochma Yeser, but yet on one hand there is an advantage on Chochma. L'Yeser B'Chinas Pnimis, that is in a Galgalta B'Chinas Chitzonis. So that's why Torah, which comes from Chochmah de Atzilus, is considered sometimes lower because it's not Keser, but sometimes it's higher because it's Pnimis. Chein mashma beitz Chaim shom sharchov beis perik hey, uperik aleph is beis, v'mashekosu l'chein b'chinazu, right? So the Avol Moichas Timo. The Moichas Timo, this is all because it's Chochmah. This is Chochmah Batzilus. But when we talk about Moichas Timo, she Pnimis HaKeser. Ilamaila Legamri Mibchinas Gulgalta Shechitzenis Shalai. That's totally higher than Gulgolos. The Gulgolos is only Chitzenis of the Moichas Timo. Achar, the Moichas Timo, Wabchinas Shebi Keser, because within Keser, She'ein B'minas Sfiris Klal. It's at all not counted in as a Sfiris. Is Pshita, the B'china Zu, so that's for sure that level of Moichis Mo, L'mayla L'gamri B'china She'bi Keser, She'u B'minas as a Sfiris. The Galgalta, the Chitzonius, sometimes we count it. We said Keser Chochmah Bina. We start counting part of the Sfiris. So this has to be much higher. What does it mean? It's a level that is not necessary. Because it's the lower level of the Maitzel. The Antuchad v'lo b'chushma. He's one. It's not accounting. It's not necessary. So basically, Moichas Timo is higher, but Torah comes from Chochmah Atzilus. But if Chochmah comes from Moichas Timo is definitely higher than the Gulgalta. And Moichas Timo is the Pnimis of the Gulgalta. So it is both Pnimis and it's higher. And it's not part of the number at all, as the Chitzonis HaKeser, which is the Ratzon. Sometimes Arich is sometimes considered part of the 10. You go ahead. Ba'afal gav the Beitz Chaim Shom Isa the Zehu B'chinas Atik u'Moichas Timo u'B'chinas Arich Apin. Over there in Beitz Chaim it says that this is the level of Atik. What is Zehu? That the level of Ratzon, the level of Gulgoilus. So that's the lower level. We were saying that Moichas Timo is higher. But we explained over here Moichas Timo B'chinas Tainug Shu B'chinas Ein Sof Mamash. That in Moichas Timo is the level of Tainug Ein Sof Mamash. But it's Soine Leimer. Mean to say the B'chinas Atik Shu B'chinas Tainug ומזכלה בחוכמה סתימו בבחינת פנימיוס ממש. That the level of Atik, which is Tainuk, that is revealed in the Chokhmah Stimo, in the inner, Mash'enke b'chinas Galgalto, Shechitzonis. U'kamashikosu Beitz Chaim Sharcha Beit Perekes Ba'arichas. V'al kein, Moiches Stimo Eine B'minas Esfiras. Al derech Mashikosu Beitz Chaim Sharcha Al Perigimel. So, I guess that mitzad, because of the level of tainuk, maybe the level of atik itself, the moiches timo, but when we talk about the tainuk comes in the and that's why we don't count it in the Sfira Derech Mashikosu Beitz Chaim Shar Mem Aleph Perigimel Vayim Mashikosu Bebiur Aposik Sheis Osir Mevur K'Mashikosu Kan. I'm not understanding. The problem is, what does it mean? Afagav Beitz Chaim Shom Iso Dezehu Chinas Atik, which is the Zehu, that this is the Golgoylus he's talking about. Okay, but the bottom line is, this Galus is in Tainug, is in Moiches Timo. Omnam bebiur apos givush yavilavush machs bevur. Over there it's explained in the Mamer. The gam legabe b'chinas moiches timo. Yeah, over there Taka says that even relative to the level of moiches timo. Over here we were saying that the rotzen, the way we concluded over here, is that the rotzen is only higher than moichin of Chabad, of Atzilus, of Chochma Atzilus, but not next to the moiches timo, not next to Atik, the level of, which is the Pnimius of inside the Golgoyos. But over there it says that also legabe b'chinas moiches timo, shaykh loymar sheyesh b'chinas begalgalto shigvoy yesa. It does make sense to say that it is a level nagalga which is higher than moiches timo as well. Ki moiches timo, the chochma shebikeser. See exactly what you said before. So the Torah comes from Moiches Timo. The Galgalta who Keser Shebi Keser. So it turns out that the Galgalta is even higher than Moiches Timo. Who Moker Hamitzvus. So it's external, but it's actually higher, because Torah comes from Moiches Timo. I was explained elsewhere. Over there it says that the Moiches Timo is higher than the level of Keser, the level of Golgalta. I have to say, according to this, Shapanim is the Keser Shalamayla Legamri Galgalto, that the inner of Keser, which is totally higher than the Galgalto, Umashikosu Beitz Chaim Sharcha Beiser Pezbo, it says over there in Sheha Keser Shaloi, Hu Oy Richni Makiv Alochum. Amar Mechitzonis Shaloi HaMispashtim Lamato Chulu, Pagogolus Chuyinu Einsho. So, so inyan Reisha v'Gulgalta Moichi. So we have like 3 levels now. You have Reisha, Gulgalta, and Moichi. Moichi is in the Gulgoylus. You have the Gulgoylus, and you have the Reisha. Before Bezoyer Parshem dat tzadik vov amud beis ein shom b'migdash melech the pirush reisha hu ikar hakeser shehu b'soid oir makif. That's the secret oir makif. V'galgaltu chitzonis hakeser. V'ramaz kosav ki reisha pnimis hakeser. Galgalto sim chitzonis yusei. That's the inner of keser. Galgalto is the end of its externality. Hamispashim v'nasle galgalto k'meshikosuv. I'm not sure the Rosh Tevis at kan l'shoyim. V'kavanosa gam kein l'mashikosuv b'yitzchayim sharachov beis soy perik vov hachitzonis lo hamispashtim. So again, from keser itself, you have the chitzonis that expounds. Im kein l'choyre Zaustira l'mashikosu kan b'chinas meichus timo b'china pnimis shebekeser she'ena b'minas esfiras. Over here, we're saying that is the pnimis keser. You're counting in esfiras. Dim keinu vadil l'mayla gamri b'chinas galgaltos. This is what he was talking about before. That it turns out that it's must be much higher than Galgalta. And here we're saying no, that there's a level in the Galgalta which is higher than it. There's still not a contradiction. Both of the Mamorim over here and over there are all explained in its Chaim. Of there is explained the Galgalto Hulemaila Mimachustimo. That the Galgalto is higher even Machustimo. Who Keser, Darich Ampin, because that's the Keser of Arich Ampin, Umachustimo, who Chochmo Darich Ampin. So that's Keser should be Keser. That's in that man. Kein Kosav, Raharamaz, Rish Parshis, Emer Dapi, Ches, Vumiyu Sada Mamer, Api Mamer Haidre Zutra, Dafrish Peches Omadunal. So there, based on this, it's explained that this is what it says. Yesh Maile b'mitzvahs hanimshachim b'galgalta yoser mit-Torah hanimshachas b'meichus timo. That there is an advantage in the mitzvahs that come from the galgalta more than Torah b'meichus timo. Umikol mokoyim. Yes, Maila. So this is all talking about Keser of the Keser, the Meichus Timo, and then there's the Makim that is Mispashim. Mekomokim Yesh Maila b'Toira, Hanimshachas Meichus Timo Yoysim b'Mitzvahs. Ki Meichus Timo b'Chinas Primis, because Meichus Timo is a Primis. All right, we'll leave it over here. I'll deal with